This episode is brought to you by the Black Cat Shadow Movie Store. Right now, our Black Friday sale is going on, now through the end of November. Get 10% off your total order.
Is imagination simply contained in the mind? Or does it tap into an unseen world with messages waiting to be told? There is a place where legends cross over into our world, where strange visions and whispers beckon, and superstition takes hold. Step into the Black Cat's shadow.
Welcome back to the Black Cat Shadow. I'm your host Andy, podcasting from Kansas City, Missouri.
And I'm Phantom Dark Dave, coming at you from the heart of Texas. With us today, a man who is quickly invading our TV screens. He's made appearances in such shows as Limitless, The Blacklist, and Blue Bloods. He wrote, produced, directed, and not to mention even starred in the heavily nominated and award-winning short film Into the Dark. He has been associated with many projects, but it was his most recent film, now available on Netflix, titled The Black Room, that's caught my attention. Please give it up for Lukas Hassel.
Amazingly enough, young Maggie Black managed to keep that conjured demon lover trapped in the basement room, hidden away for years and years, until the day she disappeared.
So she had a pet incubus. That's a first.
Well, at some point, all pets come out to play.
Hey guys, how are you? Thrilled to be with you today.
Yeah, no, we're excited to have you on the show and you give the chance to listeners to get to know you a little bit better and hear about some of your work that you got.
Sure.
Yeah, but we noticed that you've actually been in front of, and not only in front of, but behind the camera as well in some of your many roles during your film career. So did you start off in acting, or did you start off in something else and then transition to acting?
No, I started off in acting. I was born and raised in Denmark, right? So I was an exchange student in the U.S. as a senior in high school, and got the lead in the high school play back then, and I had a blast with it. And so I thought there might be something to this. So when I got back to Denmark, I started taking sort of acting classes, and then got into Trinity College in Dublin for acting, and moved to Ireland and studied acting there, and then moved to New York in '96 to work with my career there. So it was always acting primarily, and sort of writing came later as an attempt to sort of regain some of the power that you always give away as an actor in a casting room. You walk in hoping to get cast, and it's not in your control. So writing was the first step in trying to get some of that power back, and then directing what I write is the real power, because then it's really completely in your control. So that was the next part of that trajectory, so to speak.
And so, one of the films that definitely caught our attention, like Dave said, was Black Room.
We recently actually talked to Rolf, who
Rolf Konevsky, sure.
it. Yeah, and we gave you a lot of praise on that show. So now you do get your own episode again, but your name's going to pop up on that one too. Just a heads up.
I appreciate it.
He gave us some really great backstory, but I just wanted to see what you could add to it. I just want to go back to the beginning of how did you come about to be in this film?
Well, it goes back really to a casting that I had in New York for a whole different movie called The Seventh Secret, which is just finished now and is about to sort of hit the festival circuit, which is a sort of dark film on taking on the world of spanking, sort of a take on 50 Shades of Grey, so to speak. And in that film, I was cast as a sort of spanking nightclub owner, and my wife is Natasha Henstridge by chance. So I got to I started working with her on this film, and we really clicked in that we had a great chemistry. We sort of got on really well off set, and we sort of work in the same way. And so we shot this film, and it was all great, and we sort of stayed in touch and sort of became friends. And then out of nowhere, she texted me and she says, what are you doing for the next sort of 6 weeks? And I said, as it turns out, I have exactly 6 weeks before I have another gig. I have a hard out on whatever date it was. And she said, well, I have this thing that I think you would be really great for. So let me just work on this and I'll get back to you. And so she was the one who brought me into the Black Room by recommending me to Rolf Konevsky and the wonderful producer Esther Goodstein. So she sort of took a gamble to sort of bring me in, and they checked out my stuff, and the next day there was sort of an offer from my agent from LA. It happened super fast. I already had a trip planned to Rome, so I went to Rome, came back to New York on a Tuesday, flew to LA on a Wednesday, met the director Rolf for dinner Wednesday night, and we started shooting Thursday morning. So it was like a super insane, sort of hectic. I brought the script with me to Rome, so between doing touristy stuff, I was learning the script off and working on what I wanted to do with the character, and so it was sort of a whirlwind in that sense. So I really have Natasha to thank for bringing me on.
Yeah, and the thing about that, too, is you sold it, man. You guys have amazing chemistry on camera. I truly believed everything that was going on there. I saw the spark. I saw the, everything, just the way that, the movie has all the one-liners in it. Because it's a horror movie, but it's also got some good comedy mixed in, which you deliver very, very well. And I even at one time, my wife's in another room, and she's like, I thought you were watching a horror movie. I'm like, I am, but this is hilarious, and not in the way of it cheesy. It's just like, those are jokes I would make too,
Right.
That I normally get in trouble for, though, by the way.
Right. Well, that's all credit to Rolf for, creating a script that's right on the edge of sort of, horror and comedy and mixing of the two. And again, without going sort of overly cheesy on it, there are some, it's just a real practical, old-fashioned sort of horror comedy, weird movie with slime and hidden wires and all that stuff. And I think, he really got the vibe of what he wanted to do. Even sort of, I sort of realized that as we were shooting it, I didn't sort of see that as clearly as when I was reading the script. But then, even when you see the credit sequence in the beginning, you know what film you're in for. So, so Rolf sort of nailed the tone of the film, and then, sort of went with it from there.
No, it's awesome that they, when you work with a director and they have that crystal clear vision of what they want the film to be, and they
exactly,
they're able to bring that out. That's great. I mean, it makes it for a smooth production, I'm sure.
Yeah, it's just one of those things that gives you confidence to sort of also play around a little bit with your character on set, because he's so focused on what he needs to get from the scene, but he's also sort of a little bit open as to how he gets to that vibe that he's looking for, right? So that's very exciting for an actor to work with someone like that, as opposed to someone who's micromanaging every little bit. It gives the actors freedom to sort of add their own touches here and there, and I think that freedom only comes when the director is very clear on the end result he wants, but he realized you can get there in many different ways. So it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun to sort of play around on set and to have time to just figure out like what works best. And he was even open to adding lines here and there and switching some words out. And so some of my own gags made it in, and I was very happy to see that they weren't cut out. And so it was really cool.
Yeah, speaking of, having fun on set, I was going to ask you what was some of the, most memorable moments of making the movie, because you start off that you're this loving couple and you're clearly the innocent guy in here. And then I'm not going to spoil anything, but what happens to your character, you get to kind of flip a switch and play a different type of personality, and right. You carry yourself like you're egotistical. You're very, how do I say this, just so full of confidence. And that's where a lot of the one-liners come in too. Right. I mean, you just sold it, man, because it was so funny. And I was just going to ask you, any stories on set or anything about that?
Well, there, again, without giving away too much, for parts of the thing, I would be sitting in makeup for quite a long time for a few of the scenes. And it's just one of those things. As an actor, you're hoping to get a role like this where you can really go wild and sort of go over the top with certain things, where most of the time with TV and stuff, I'm in the middle of shooting Elementary right now, and it's like everything has to be super understated. The more understated, the better. And then you get into a project like this, and it's sort of, you're given the okay to explore extreme sides of your own personality and sort of try to make that work. So it's just an incredibly sort of fun playground to get involved with. At one point I have to essentially sort of inseminate or make out with a room, with a wall, and it's you have people standing on ladders pouring slime over you from above, and you have hands coming through the walls groping me here and there, and it's like, I just told the various PAs who were the poor victims of having to grope me to not worry about what they grabbed. I'm like, if we're going to do this, just go for it, and you can reach in, you can reach around, you can do whatever. Let's just get this take and go all out so that we don't have to do it over and over because you're being polite. That's a waste of my time, it's a waste of your time. So listen, when we roll action, don't worry about what I'm going to think, just go for it. And so I think that's how a lot of these things come out, and it's important to make people understand that that's the way that I work, because otherwise you do get into situations where people are polite and they don't want to cross boundaries and stuff. But I personally don't have a lot of boundaries. That's just how I operate. So I'm good with that. And that's why I think I was also a good fit for this movie.
You talked about, some of the fun scenes in the film, which the wall, that definitely stood out. I mean, you go in the basement looking like a rock star, and you do some things that kind of remind me of somebody who is a rock star, But
right. True.
Yes, exactly. But you did, you mentioned being in the makeup chair and everything like that. That brings forth the question of what was kind of the most challenging thing in the film.
I mean, that sort of being in prosthetic makeup is a challenge without a doubt, because it's not comfortable. And it takes a while for it to get put on. That's fine, but then you're in it for a long time, and then when you add, so your sight is somewhat off because you have these things that are weighing heavily on your eyelids, and you have glue on your cheeks, and it's, that smells, and that's horrible. And then you have sort of blood in your mouth or whatever scene you're doing, and then with the slime, it gets. I mean, people who don't get slimed every day don't realize how cold that is. As soon as you're not moving, it starts getting it hardens on your skin, but as long as it's moist, it's incredibly cold. It cools your body down, which is, it imitates sweat on a hot day. It's meant to cool you down, right? So you had to stand around. So myself and Natasha were huddled around a little heating lamp in between takes to try to stay warm. And meanwhile, the slime is getting crusty and disgusting, and then we're ready to shoot again. They come in and spritz us to make it shiny and gooey again, and then we go out and do it one more time, and that goes on for days. So, so that's just one of those challenges that you don't really see on film, but it's behind the scenes. It's, when you get to that hot shower at the end of the day, that's really great.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, a lot of, like you said, people, I mean, you just don't know, what you guys as the actors have to go through, especially on a movie with a lot of special effects and some
right.
of these set pieces are just out of this world, and so it's interesting to see some of the things that you guys do.
But it's also interesting that almost in a way, when you do this sort of old-fashioned type of horror film where it's all practical effects, it's a lot more work for the people on set to make these things happen, as opposed to in post if you're working with a green screen. But it helps us, the actors, a lot, because you know what you're working with. You don't have to visualize something with a green screen and say, okay, so here, something's going to come at me and it's probably going to look like this, and then try to act with that. So it makes it easier for actors on a practical set like this, and I think that probably comes across in the movie as well. I mean, you sometimes see some of these special effects laden movies, and sometimes you wonder why the acting is a little off, and it's probably because they didn't have anything to act with. It was a tennis ball on a green stick, and that's tough. That gets to be really tricky. So,
yeah, no doubt. I mean, yeah, when you have something there that's physical that you can see, you can interact with, that definitely, takes everything up a notch. And
right, exactly.
And I think that's what gave a lot of the older movies, in the 80s that did use practical effects, I think that's what gave them their charm, because sometimes the characters' reactions are genuine, or sometimes they're not really acting, but they're actually, freaked out by what they're seeing or interacting with the slime or whatever, So that's cool. That, I mean, there's definitely something to be said for the practical effects, and I know, you get studios or producers, worried about the bottom line, and so sometimes the computer stuff has to get put in there. But it's
Right.
awesome. I think when you're doing like an independent film or whatever, you kind of get a little bit more freedom to do some of that stuff practically.
I mean, and exactly, and that's exactly. I mean, whether I, on the TV gigs that I do, so to say, you mentioned the Blacklist and so forth, in elementary, whatever I'm doing now, it's like those TV gigs as an actor, unless you're the star of the show, it's not that satisfactory because there's no collaboration, there's no rehearsal process, there's no real exploration sort of in that way because it's a busy time, money talks, and you have to move on. So unless you're the star where you can go in and say, hold it guys, and let me just figure out how I want to do this, if you come in as a co-star or whatever, you're sort of pretty much told, stand here, go here, say your line here, then you go there, and then you raise the gun here, and then you're out here, and we go to the next set and go back in the trailer. And so it's not that interesting. It's a profile-raising event for sure. It's important for actors to get the TV gigs because it makes your name recognition higher. But as a job goes, it's not interesting personally. But the reason you have to do it is because it raises your status in the independent film work, where the interesting work is. So so it feeds back into the independent film world. Sort of the more people see me on TV and hear about the other stuff I do, the more they want to get me in their indie film, where I can work with visionary directors, where you can rehearse, where you can collaborate, where you can do what I got into acting for in the first place. That has nothing to do with TV. Like what I do on TV is not what I got into acting for. That's a paycheck and that's a profile-raising event. What I do with, say, stuff like The Black Room and these other independent films I'm in, that's what I enjoy doing. So something for something.
Hey guys, if you haven't checked out the Black Hat Shadow movie store, now is a great time because we're having our Black Friday sale going on now till the end of November. You get 10% off your total order. We have VHS, we have DVD, we have Blu-rays, we have rare and hard to find stuff on there. So definitely would encourage you guys to go check it out. See what we got there. I think we have a really good selection of different things, different kind of oddball things. You never know what you're going to find there, and every purchase helps out the Black Hat Shadow podcast. So again, you get 10% off your order now through the end of November. It's our Black Friday sale going on now, so go check it out. Thanks, guys.
We return you now to your regularly scheduled program.
Yeah, so then that kind of leads me to my next question here. So over your film career, you've done a variety of things, a variety of genres. Do you want to do more horror? Do you enjoy doing the horror stuff, or do you want to kind of do a variety of genres?
For me, I'm just attracted to characters that are layered. And so, horror, I enjoy horror because I feel it's a challenge to take sort of a relatively sort of flat character and then figure out the layers, like the dark side of a character, as well as the heroic side, depending on what type of character it is. And I think horror lends itself to widening the scope of what your character can get involved in on both the good and the bad side of human nature. Sometimes in a drama you just get a smaller range of what you can explore, and I think horror and sci-fi sort of liberates you a little bit to go beyond that. And in general, I'm just attracted to characters that sort of explores the dark side of human nature. My scripts, what I write is extremely dark. And I've just written my first horror script, which is already getting into a lot of festivals. And so hopefully, and that's the most commercial of my scripts. I have a feeling that is going to get made at some point over the next year. And, I enjoy horror. I'm going to Horror Hound this weekend in Indianapolis. My new short film called The Son, the Father is sort of, it's a horror suspense type script, and that's just had its world premiere out in the Chinese Theater in Los Angeles for the Holly Shorts Festival, and that's screening in Indianapolis. And then they're pairing it up with The Black Room, which is kind of fun. And then Jeremiah Kipp is a horror director, and I did a short film for him called Slapface, and they're screening those three films together in a block at Horror Hound, sort of the Lukas Hassel block. So that's really cool of them to do that, and that'll be a lot of fun. It happens this Saturday.
That sounds awesome. Yeah. I think I was reading that Slapface. Is it Ogre? Was that the character you played? Okay, I thought I remembered that because that name Slapface doesn't go away.
Right. No, exactly. Yeah. It's basically I play a female monster in it, which is, Jeremiah Kipp is like a sort of well-known sort of figure on the horror circuit somewhat, and he has a feature script a feature script version of this that he wants to make, and so he got funding to do a sort of short treatment, really. So it's like a 9-minute sort of commercial to raise the rest of the money for the feature, and it's super cool actually. So I'm excited to see how this fares.
All right, so can I take you back a little bit because I want to know about Into the Dark. I tried to find this film so I could watch it before, and all I could get was the trailer. So can you tell our listeners a little bit about it?
It was my first sort of serious short film. I had a feature script that did really well. It won the Cinestory Fellowship in LA and placed and won a lot of competitions. And every time I met with producers, I pitched myself as the director, and they were like, "Well, we can't pitch you as the director because you haven't done anything as a director." So I was like, fair enough. And so I set my mind to creating a short film that I wouldn't have sort of seen before on the film circuit. I wanted to do something different. And so I got this idea for this script, and it's basically, the premise is basically two men strapped in back to back on a journey from moon to Earth. They're sort of strapped into a capsule, and you find out what's going on. And it's been killing it on the circuit, playing in like 70-plus festivals. It's done really, really well, and it's done well above and beyond what I thought it was going to do. And that was basically only to prove that I had a vision as a filmmaker. And that's how this film came about. I shot it in my apartment. I built the set with my DP, Henry B. Lee, and I had never built anything in my life before, so it was like, Velcro and screws and boards and all kinds of craziness and nonsense in my apartment for a month and a half, and we shot it sort of over 9 days. The luxury I had was that I didn't have to rush out of being, I wasn't in a studio where I had to shoot in 3 days. The luxury was I could take my time in my own apartment, which I thought was a smart choice for my first, directorial effort, really. So we ended up creating this super cool little sci-fi short, and it probably had its last screening just now in Escape Velocity Festival in DC, where it did really well, and it was a lot of fun to see it down there on the big screen. But now I'm going to retire it because it's been out there for a while. I haven't put it out on YouTube or anything else just because I secured festival rights for one of the songs in the piece and not sort of general release rights, and I kind of want to honor that. I know I could probably get away with putting it on YouTube and not get in trouble, but I'm not that interested in doing that, really. It's been screening a lot, and so I just want to honor the fact that they gave me permission to use it for festivals. I was grateful for that, and then just leave it be. A short film is not there to make money. It's not there to do anything but raise your profile in festival circuits, I think. So it's done its job, and now I'm on to the new short film, The Son, the Father, and we'll see what that does, and then hopefully I'll do my first feature next year.
I know what you mean by talking about, you do the short stuff, you kind of got to show what you can and can't do. And that's really impressive too I don't know anything about building sets, but knowing that, you just showed the dedication, and you and your partner, you guys got a DP, you guys got it knocked out, right, and showed that, you were serious about it and that you have something to show for it. And you can, now say, look, I've been involved with these things. I've directed this, wrote this, edited, produced, and then right, now you can do the feature film. So I know that we'll all be looking forward to it for sure.
Right, and it's really, I can only tell this, I can repeat this to other actors / writers or wannabe filmmakers that it's really, really worth it. It was a ton of work, and it was, at times incredibly frustrating, but when the result is done and it's what you hoped it was going to be, I've gotten so much from doing that, not just in terms of like respect from peers and so forth, but just actually in terms of like jobs and in terms of putting my sort of name out there in a whole different way, so it's worth it. I mean, give it a shot. If you think that you might have something in you that you have a point of view about something, give it a shot, because in this day and age, you're competing with so many talented people. You got to make it happen for yourself. So I'm a big fan of taking charge of your own sort of life choices and career. And so this was a very smart move for me. And I wouldn't have been able to direct the new short if it wasn't for Into the Dark, because they were going to have another director do my script. And I was like, well, can I pitch myself as this director of this script? Can I send you my previous film and see what you think? And they loved Into the Dark and said, go for it. We'll bring you up to Seattle and you can direct your own short. And so my second one came about because of the first one. And so it's just one of those things. And now that production company wants to produce my feature. And so you can sort of go back in time and say it was probably, Into the Dark that started a lot of that. So.
Wow, yeah, that's awesome. It's good information to know that these are the steps you need to take to take charge of your career, especially like in the film industry. And so basically, your big upcoming project is your son short film, right? Is that kind of the next?
Well, yeah. So it's called The Son, the Father. I mean, it's finished now. So it's basically hitting It's going to hit the festival circuit, and I'm going to travel around with that and sort of, reestablish some connections with programmers from festivals, and then meet some new programmers here and there. And it's all part of the bigger plan of the more programmers you get to know from festivals, the easier it might be for them to remember your feature film, because that's where it's really at, right? And feature films are harder to get into festivals, so if you have a personal relationship with a programmer, it's easier to say, listen, I'm about to submit my feature. It doesn't mean that you're going to accept it, but hopefully you'll be aware that it's there so it won't, disappear in the masses of features. And so it's all sort of part of the bigger plan of my filmmaking career that I'm, pursuing, so to speak. So it's a lot about, making connections with people that you respect and that you have the same sort of taste level as, and then hopefully when this next feature is ready, it'll give it a slight edge in getting screenings.
Okay, yeah. Well, Lukas, once again, we appreciate you coming on the show. This has been a very insightful discussion about just how to make progress in the film industry, and I know me and Dave appreciate hearing your behind the scenes experiences and. With the Black Room and also just when your film career, it's been very interesting to hear that stuff and educational. And so I know our listeners will appreciate it too. And so we just want to say thanks for coming on the show today, Lukas.
No, listen, both to David and Andy, thanks for having me. And, it's always great to reach out and to meet other, like-minded people who are interested in this industry. And if it weren't for people like you, we wouldn't be able to make these films. So it's great to have a broad outreach with the film community. So thank you for having me on.
And thank you, listeners, for tuning into this episode. We really appreciate it. We announced a giveaway earlier, I think it was a week ago, something like that. And it was the giveaway for the Paranormal Activity collection on DVD. And, we asked for people to like, share, retweet our post, and send us the answers to the question about what did Mika and Katie watch during their downtime while filming the first Paranormal Activity movie. And, of course, the answer was the Ali G Show. And so out of the answers that we got, we picked a random winner. And the winner is one of our Twitter peeps. It's Rev Christopher Hagen. So congratulations, Chris. And if you guys don't know who that is, he is a YouTube host. He is a radio host on Scream Radio, SCRM Radio. Yeah, you can find him on YouTube. Just look up Rev Hagen, and his channel will pop up there. It's a really interesting channel. He does movie reviews. He talks about weird mysteries that happen around the world, and definitely go check that out. If you're on Twitter, you can find him at Vinkman23. And so once again, congratulations, Rev Christopher Hagen. And after this episode, for the next episode, you can look forward to our chat episode about exorcism movies. It's going to feature all three of us, me, Dakota, and Phantom Dark Dave. We're going to talk about some of our favorite exorcism movies, a little bit about the history of exorcism movies, and Dakota even gets into a little bit of demonology while we talk about all this. So it's an interesting chat. So stay tuned for that. And You can find us out there on social media. On Twitter, we're at Black Hat Podcast. You can find Phantom Dark Dave at Phantom Dark Dave. We are also on Facebook and Horror Amino as well. You can send us any questions, comments, feedback, concerns you have. You can send us an email at blackhatpodcast@gmail.com. If you'd like to send Dakota an email, you can certainly do that at dakshadowbane@gmail.com. That's DAKSHADOWBANE@gmail.com. You can find our website at www.blackhatshadow.com, where you'll find links to the Black Hat Shadow movie store. You'll find links to where you can download all of our past episodes and listen to them whenever you'd like. And you can also listen to all of our past episodes directly from the website as well. And also, don't forget, we do have a YouTube channel where you can find all of our episodes there. I think that's going to do it for us here. Remember, guys, to take a closer look at the world around you, and you may just find that it is stranger and more mysterious than you thought, especially in the Black Hat Shadow.